Thank you very much. Welcome, as I said, to this information session for University of Sao Paulo. I'm Brent Haas. I'm Associate Dean here at Yenching Academy. I'm calling you from my hotel room in Hangzhou in Zhejiang Province. We are currently on night three of our annual first year course for all Yenching scholars, our field study. So we are night three in Hangzhou, and we'll be here for one more night after tonight, and then moving on to another city in Zhejiang to Ningbo. Um, this is just me here in from Yenching Academy in tonight's meeting. So as I go through the presentation, which will be, I try to keep it to about 30 minutes. It tends to go to about 40 minutes or so. So let me go ahead and tell you about what we have to offer to potential scholars at Yenching Academy. We're proudly part of Peking University, China's oldest comprehensive institution of higher education, and we like to think the best in China. It's an absolutely gorgeous campus located just outside of the northwestern section of the Fourth Ring Road. It's a historically and culturally significant place to live, to work, and study. We're housed in Jingyuan. It's a lovely grassy area surrounded by traditional courtyard buildings that were built in the 1920s as part of a former university, Yenching University, that's here on the campus. Yenching University was active from 1916 until 1952, when Peking University moved from our former campus closer to into the city center. It was a little bit to the northeast of the Forbidden City. When Yenching University closed, Peking University took over this campus. It used to be part of, at least the northwestern portion of our campus was part of a Qing dynastic imperial summer palace complex. Jingyuan Courtyard is where Yenching Academy's administration building and teaching building, as well as our large multifunction lecture hall, are located. You can see one of our classrooms here in the central photo, and then the left photos are all shots of the gates leading into and out of Jingyuan Courtyards 3 and 4. And yes, we do have some cats that live with us in our courtyards. There are hundreds of semi-feral cats living on Peking University's campus, and one of the most popular student clubs is actually the Beida Maoxia. It's a club dedicated to caring for the cats of Peking University. The Yenching Academy itself, what we are essentially is a 2-year full scholarship master's program in interdisciplinary China studies. We are deeply connected to the humanities and social sciences here at Peking University. Unlike most of the 学院 or sort of institute or school level institutes at Peking University, we don't have our own faculty. Instead, we draw from faculty resources across roughly 30 or so different departments, schools, or institutes at Peking University. PKU faculty teach our courses, and PKU faculty are research mentors, thesis advisors for our roughly 110 students every year. You do not have to be a fluent Chinese speaker to join our program. In fact, you're not required to have any Chinese language proficiency to apply. But, since we're a full scholarship program and a master's program focused on China studies, those who do have Chinese language proficiency or coursework or research papers or professional experiences related to China, I really recommend that you emphasize that in your application package because it can be a competitive advantage. On the other hand, we also are looking for applicants who maybe have developed expertise, both professional and or academic, in other fields, and are looking at this point in their career to apply the expertise that they have to China. So perhaps someone in recent years, we've seen a lot of people who've been doing work on, say, AI policy, AI startups. Before that, it might have been sort of corporate social responsibility or green finance. People who know a lot about those topics, but maybe don't know what's happening in China related to those fields. And so they want to apply their expertise in those fields to China. That's also a potentially very persuasive application package. So we do value experience and expertise related to China, but you don't have to be an already budding China expert to apply to our program. Nevertheless, if you do speak Chinese, there will be plenty of opportunities for you to do so. All Yenching scholars are required to take Chinese language courses in their first year. They can apply for intensive Chinese language, apply for funding for intensive Chinese language study in their second year. And, you'll be taking classes with Chinese students, learning from Chinese professors. Living in China, there's plenty of chances to flex your Chinese language proficiency and improve it while you're here with us at Yenching Academy. On the top of the slide, you'll see here it says full fellowship for the first year. Okay, that's fine, but what I really encourage you to think of the program as a 2-year full scholarship program, but with an academic performance review at the end of year one. We have some very clearly defined academic standards that are generally quite easy for Yenching scholars to meet. You have to complete 31 academic credits in your first year. You're not allowed to fail any of your core courses, and you need to maintain a minimum GPA. If you do that, then you receive the fellowship for the second year. Just please remember, we're making a significant investment in individual Yenching scholars. And when we bring in 110 per year and have, roughly 220 in the program in any given moment, it's a major financial contribution we're making. And so we think it's effective and necessary even to have an academic performance review. And the Yenching Academy also really encourages our students to expand their experience outside of Yenching Academy to try to integrate a little bit more into the academic and student communities at Peking University. So we encourage our students to take elective courses in other departments and schools here at PKU, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that coming up. So let's talk funding. The Yenching Academy Fellowship is given to all admitted students. Anyone who's admitted is fully funded. We cover tuition at Peking University. We cover accommodation, which for all first-year Yenching scholars means living in the Yenching Academy house, a dormitory just for Yenching scholars, nicely renovated. For most students, that'll mean a private room in a two-person suite. So you'll have your own bedroom, and then you'll have a shared living space and bathroom facilities. There are some solo rooms as well, but we tend to reserve those for second year students, including students who are teaching assistants or residential assistants who've earned positions at Yenching Academy in their second year. In your second year in the program, you can choose to live off campus in Beijing. And if you do so, we do offer a housing stipend that'll be sufficient to cover a private bedroom and a shared apartment. Beijing just simply isn't that cheap anymore, at least not as cheap as it used to be when I first started coming here back in the late 90s and early 2000s. We pay a monthly stipend to our students of 3,000 renminbi per month. That's sufficient for your living expenses and some travel and some extracurricular research activities. You'll be a graduate student, so you're not going to be wealthy, but I challenge you to find any graduate student that is wealthy based on their scholarship and graduate funding. We also cover travel to and from Beijing once. So a very generous financial package indeed. I should let you know that the round trip travel stipend is paid on the first leg, the travel to Beijing is paid on a reimbursement basis. So you have to get your ticket to Beijing, but you'll be in touch with the office. We'll give you some suggested flight paths to take that, based on our research, are reasonably priced. You have to cover that at first, and then as soon as you arrive in Beijing, register as a student, open a Chinese bank account, then we reimburse you for that flight. PRC and Peking University financial regulations simply make it impossible for Yenching Academy to be sending money to essentially random people's bank accounts all over the world when you're not yet registered as a student. So that might be a bit of a financial challenge for some students, but it's good for you to know about that ahead of time. Finally, we also cover a basic medical insurance package. This is the standard health insurance for international students living and studying in China. And then we have tons of funded field study and field research opportunities connected to Yenching Academy's core curriculum, elective courses, and some independent research funding as well. That independent research funding's most significant source in year one is called the Dean's Research Grant. In this research grant, students, either individuals or small groups, submit a formal research proposal to Yenching Academy. We review that on a competitive basis, evaluate its feasibility, its financial budget, and if we think there's a potential chance for an academic contribution, we will fund that research project. Beginning in the summer after your first academic year and going into the second year, there's also opportunity grants. Let's say a student has been accepted to offer a paper at an academic conference or symposium. Will cover at least a portion of the cost associated with your travel and conference expenses. In year two, we also have funded exchange opportunities, both through Yenching Academy and also through Peking University. However, I don't really recommend most international students go on an exchange program in their second year. Essentially, you're in China. It's already an international academic exchange experience in a way. But there are some cases, sometimes, let's say, someone who's focusing on the international relations between China and Korea and Japan. Well, then it might make sense to either go to Waseda or Tokyo universities in Japan or Seoul National University in South Korea to learn from local academic experts there. We have other exchange programs with Cornell University in the US, Trinity College at University of Cambridge in the UK as well, and we're always developing other research opportunities. A lot of students are interested in the sources of our funding. Where does it come from? Well, we were very fortunate at the founding of the Yenching Academy to have some individual, corporate, and family foundation donors who have essentially equipped us with quite a large endowment. The vast majority of Yenching Academy's operating expenses, salaries, and scholarships come from interest on our initial endowment. However, we do try to keep our costs low whenever possible. And so admitted students into the program are offered these four outside funding opportunities. They are voluntary, they are not mandatory. Some students are interested in applying for either the China Scholarship Council or the Beijing Municipal Education Commission, a new scholarship that's funded by the Beijing city government. The China Scholarship Council, often known as the Chinese Government Scholarship, is one that after you're admitted, we send out an email and say, hey, you might be interested in this. Look into it. Of course, we love it because it's coming from, it helps keep our costs low, but it's not required. The Baisian Asia Institute is a charitable organization based in Hong Kong and Tokyo that's focused on promoting peace and cross-cultural understanding between East and Southeast Asian nations, regions, and peoples. And so that is open for Yenching scholars from those countries or regions or with heritage from those countries or regions. You get a little bit extra funding, but you also have, including like a specific pot of money for your own Baisian research project, which you have to complete and turn in and report on to the funding agency. But then you also have some other additional responsibilities like attending other Baisian events in the summer and conferences as well. And then finally, the International Confucian Association is open for Yenching scholars who are doing research in the humanities. Again, that has a little bit higher level funding, but you also have some other research responsibilities. So these are, once again, some optional funding opportunities for admitted Yenching scholars. If you choose to not apply to any of these, or you apply to some and don't receive any, that's okay. You'll still be funded out of Yenching Academy's endowment. Let me cover the academic experience at Yenching Academy. And this slide is really important for any potential applicants. So Peking University is in the process of implementing interdisciplinary approaches across the university at the graduate level. Within the humanities and social sciences, PKU, like a lot of top Chinese graduate programs, actually is very disciplinary. Interdisciplinarity is much more administratively recognized in the hard sciences. Maybe there's a lab that has multiple, scientists from, biology, chemistry, et cetera, all working together, but they haven't really at the university gotten to the level of full interdisciplinarity in the humanities and social sciences. And similarly, China studies as an academic field of study is fairly new in the PRC. So these research areas are how we blend our interdisciplinary approach within the humanities and social sciences to a new field, China studies, and to fit what we do within the recognized degree program set by China's Ministry of Education. So these six research areas are important to every Yenching scholar's experience in three main ways. First, when you apply, you choose one of these research areas in which to concentrate. Secondly, when you select your thesis advisor and submit your formal thesis proposal at the end of year one, your thesis advisor will need to be drawn from a department or school connected to what's inside the parentheses of your chosen research area at Yenching Academy. And then finally, this will show up on your master's degree diploma. It will say Peking University, Master of Economics, and then below that, China Studies, Economics and Management. Peking University, Master of History, China Studies, History and Archaeology. This is because China Studies in the PRC is a what's called a second level academic concentration, an 二级学科, as opposed to an 一级学科, a first level degree program. Economics and history would be examples of the first level degree program, and then China Studies, History and Archaeology is the second level degree program. So it's a bit complicated, but this is how we've been able to fit what we do at Yenching Academy into the pre-existing system of degree recognition here in the PRC. So at the application stage, you need to choose one of these six research areas, and you need to be smart about this. Now, grad school's hard. You want to study something you're interested in. That should go without saying. But a fully funded master's program at China's top university isn't necessarily the place to start learning an academic field from scratch. For instance, you're going to have a hard time convincing us that you are well trained to do China studies, economics, and management at the graduate level if you've never taken microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistical analysis. Similarly, if you're applying to China studies, politics, and international relations, and you get an interview in the program, then you should expect that someone's going to quiz you, what are the major fields of IR theory? Who are some of the major scholars working in realism? So these are the kinds of things that you need to be prepared for and you need to think about when you apply to our program and select your research concentration. I do not mean that you can only apply to China Studies, History, and Archaeology if you have a history degree or an archaeology degree. It's not that simple, and we're not just looking at the name of your degree. But we do need to see a connection between what you have studied, or perhaps the kind of work you've done in your professional life, your research concentration at Yenching Academy, and going even deeper, the theories and methodologies you suggest you want to use in your statement of research interest, what you imagine your master's thesis topic will be at the application stage, and then hopefully where you go in your career. Let's take the example of China Studies, Law, and Society for a little bit more in-depth discussion. And this is connected to the second major way that this research area is important to your experience at Yenching Academy, selecting a thesis advisor. So if your thesis topic is, let's say, China's experimentation with online legal services in the civil affairs court. There's been a lot of people who've been studying the fact that Hangzhou, the city that I'm in right now, has put forth some policies over the last 7 years or so, but really really speeding up during the pandemic and allowing some civil legal issues to be adjudicated online. Cool. That's very interesting. So your thesis topic is on that. Well, then when you select a thesis advisor at the end of year one to guide you in your second year research process, it's going to make sense that your thesis advisor will come from the Peking University School of Law. You're on the law side of law and society. But if you're looking at China's impending demographic crisis with an aging population and changing reproductive strategies among young Chinese women or young Chinese families, then it would make a little bit more sense that your thesis advisor would be drawn from, say, the Department of Sociology or even the Peking University Guanghua School of Management's Institute for Social Research, rather than, say, from the School of Law. So this is the level of detail that I think each of you, in the best situation, will be thinking when you are just considering which research concentration to apply. I'll have plenty of, I'll be happy to answer any of your specific questions about this coming up later in the presentation. Okay, so year one. Year one and year two at Yenching Academy are split. Year one is about coursework. It's about exploring what Peking University has to offer. It's about taking classes, getting to know other Yenching scholars, and developing and solidifying your own research interests. You finish all of your courses in year one, and then year two, your time is much more your own. You can study in intensive Chinese language. You can do internships. You must conduct your own research. You must analyze your data, draft your thesis, and defend your thesis at the end of year two. In year one, however, all Yenching scholars will take these four courses that you see in the upper left: China in Transition 1 and 2, Field Study, the course and event that I am on right now with 109 first-year Yenching scholars, about 15 staff, and about 10 second-year students who are teaching assistants. The Topic in China Studies lecture series, and academic writing. All Yenching scholars who are non-native Chinese speakers have to take Chinese language all through year one. It's a good course. It's not what we call in the field an intensive course. It's 4 hours of classes per week plus 2 hours of language tutoring each week. In general, when we define an intensive language class, it's a little bit more like 4 hours of class a day. And that's the option that you might have for second year at Yenching Academy. China in Transition is our flagship course. It's a full year, two-semester, multidisciplinary look at contemporary China. The fall course is co-taught by about 12 leading Peking University professors, and they teach sort of modules on different aspects of contemporary China: Chinese political system, Chinese legal system, Chinese economy, Chinese society, etc. And then the spring semester version of China in Transition, you select a course taught by one of the scholars, one of the professors who co-taught the fall semester, and they give you a look at contemporary China through an academic discipline, and that builds up to faculty-guided student field research projects. The goal of this class is to start big and broad, narrow down, and then make sure that each Yenching scholar already has some field research experience under their belt before they even start their master's thesis in the second year. The required courses will take just under half of your required minimum course credits. The remaining 50, 60% of your course credits are elective courses. You can take elective courses taught at Yenching Academy, and or you can take courses taught in other departments and schools at Peking University, as long as they are in the humanities or social sciences and are connected to China, essentially. These are the elective courses that are on offer at Yenching Academy in the social sciences for this academic year, 2025 to 2026. They'll basically be the same. There might be some variation in the upcoming academic year. You'll see that most of them are taught in English. And you notice that they're categorized as in the research concentration. Each Yenching scholar is required to take a minimum of 2 elective courses in their research concentration. Outside of that, you're free to take any courses you want across research concentrations or other departments and schools. These are the courses that are on offer at Yenching Academy, the elective courses on offer at Yenching Academy this academic year in the humanities. You'll see again, most are taught in English, unless otherwise indicated. If you're interested, I'm teaching the history of the field, sinology and China studies from a global perspective. That's my fall semester course. And in the spring, I teach a modern Chinese history seminar that the last few years has been entitled Late Imperial and Modern China Reflected in the Writings of Jonathan D. Spence, late great Chinese historian from Yale University. In the second year, you're done with your classes. You might be a teaching assistant, you might be a residential assistant, or be working in the office to get a little extra cash in your pocket. You might have an internship. You might be on an exchange. You could also potentially be studying intensive Chinese, either at Peking University or another reputable Chinese language program in Beijing. But the real goal is thesis, research, analysis, drafting, and defending your thesis. And for any graduate program, the most important relationship a graduate student should have is with their thesis advisor, their faculty or academic advisor. Now, most Yenching scholars are going to have up to two formal academic advisors in their 2 years. Year one, we call it the faculty advisor, and year two is the thesis advisor. All Yenching scholars will select a faculty advisor within the first month of being in the program. So by mid-October or so of their first semester here at Yenching Academy, you sort of go on and look at our online registration system for potential thesis advisors. You look at the bios and research concentrations of the professors that we have, and you essentially give a list of your top five. And then you submit your information to them, and based on their availability, how many slots do they have to advise, and their reviewing of your basic info, like your background, your concentration, your CV, etc. You get matched with someone. Now, that first year faculty advisor is there to learn about your developing research interests, suggest courses you can take, and maybe they're not going to be the perfect person to actually end up advising your thesis, but they might know who that person will be. So they're there to open doors for you, to introduce you to other faculty members at Peking University. Now, we have a really, really unique system of academic advising at Yenching Academy. As far as I know, the only one in China. In Chinese graduate programs, like most universities, let's say you go into the political science department. At Peking University in the Department of Political Science, all of your courses will be political science courses. All of your professors will be poli-sci professors. All of your classmates will be poli-sci classmates. But at Yenching Academy, because we don't have our own faculty and we're so connected to the faculties of across the humanities and social sciences, we have over 150 professors at over 25 different schools, departments, or institutes at Peking University, who either have been, are willing to be, or currently are advisors for Yenching scholars. So you can just get a sense in law and society concentration of China studies. You can draw on faculty from the law school, the Department of Sociology, urban and environmental sciences, education, life sciences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these are the departments or schools or institutes from which faculty members can serve as advisors in the humanities, literature and culture, history and archaeology, philosophy and religion. Okay, let me have a sip of water. So we really think that the most important part of Yenching Academy is studying and researching China in China, learning from Chinese professors at the top Chinese university. But a big part of that is, if you don't make China your classroom, what's the point of coming here? You can read books online or in libraries anywhere in the world. So we really try to integrate field research and field study in many of our courses. We try to take your learning experience outside of Beijing and outside of the classroom. So we're currently on our fall field study. We're focusing on Zhejiang province, 4 nights in Hangzhou, the capital of Zhejiang province, and then 2 nights in Ningbo, a former treaty port on the coast. Those will be coming up Thursday and Friday night. On this field study trip, we have a series of pre-departure lectures, assigned readings, online videos to view, building up to a really intense week-long travel learning experience. where we go to archaeological excavation sites, cultural museums, blending ancient history, 20th century history, culture and religion. Let's see, on tomorrow, we're splitting up and going to three different high-tech companies, and visiting the companies, learning about what they're doing. Then we're all gathering and going to a indoor hydroponic farming company. So we're going to go to an electronic vehicle factory. We're going to go to a Chinese family company that bought out a world famous French corporation, and looking at how they're building pianos. And so we try to blend past and present economy and culture, to give a real holistic look at a different region around China. It's a really good time. On the left, you can see myself. I'm the old bald guy, and Lu Yang. He's the director of graduate studies, a esteemed historian of medieval China and Chinese Buddhism. We're talking about 20th century Chinese history and the role that Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of nationalist China, up until 1949, and then the authoritarian ruler on Taiwan until his death in 1975. We're talking about his history and his connection to 20th century Chinese history on top of a mountain in his home village. So, we're trying to take the learning outside of the classroom. I mentioned about China in Transition, our sort of flagship course, and the field study component in the spring semester. You can see that in 2025, we had just under 30 different groups of students visit 17 different regions around China as part of this field research component to a required course. We also fund field study opportunities in our elective courses as well, as long as it makes sense. I keep trying to integrate some field study into my history course, but the global history of sinology is hard to really justify a field study. I mean, I guess we could go to universities in Paris, or we could go, down to where the Jesuits were studying. But it's, aside from my history course, a lot of our courses, let's say probably two-thirds of our courses, integrate field study components into it. More nice photos of Yenching scholars doing fun things around China. In terms of extracurricular offerings, we always try to bring in leading figures, and a lot of times these are leading figures in industry, but also in diplomacy and government service. We bring in current or former ambassadors to Peking University to share their experiences with Yenching scholars. The former Prime Minister of France, Jean-Pierre Raffarin, has been a visiting chair professor for the last couple of years. He's close friends with our dean, Dong Qiang. Prime Minister Raffarin does a year-long seminar in global affairs and leadership. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Yenching Global Symposium. It's our flagship extracurricular event. It's a student-run international China Studies symposium that takes place every year. Here you can see the themes of the first seven Yenching Global Symposia. The one down in the bottom right, Humanity, Cartographies of Collaboration, was the first one that was done outside of Beijing. We went down to an international education zone in Hainan. It's a tropical island province off the southeast coast of China. We were just there again in April of this year, Yenching Global Symposiums every April, where we had Fortitude Navigating the Tides of Change. So students in their first year join the Yenching Global Symposium Executive Committee. They come up with a theme. They think of keynote speakers and other guests to participate, put out a call for applications. We bring in about 100 or more delegates from around the world. In 2026, we'll be back to Beijing on campus. The call of applications will be going out probably in early to probably mid-December, and you're eligible to apply to become a delegate at the Yenching Global Symposium. That's disconnected from applying to the program. Lots going on at Yenching Academy and at Peking University. Basketball teams, football teams, ballroom dancing, rock climbing clubs. I mean, there's so much going on. It's a major university. You can't do everything, but there'll be plenty of things to occupy yourselves outside of the classroom. All right, let me tell you a little bit about some demographic data about Yenching scholars. We have had 11 cohorts of Yenching scholars join us. We welcomed the 11th cohort in September of 2025. And in those 11 years, we've had just under 1,200 students come through our program. A very diverse, very multicultural group. Of course, there's a lot of room for improvement for increasing our enrollments, both from Latin America and from Africa. Oceania at a 2%, it seems really bad, but when you think about the size of populations down there, that's not an area that we've really targeted as much for increasing enrollments. I personally went on two very long trips to Africa. In 2025 and 2024. I was up in the UAE, I was in Kenya, I was in South Africa, in Ghana, and Nigeria. I was down in Argentina in 2019, but then COVID and 3 years of, well, you could leave China. It was just very, very hard to come back. I'm hoping to get back to Latin America in 2026. And if that can happen, that will be a trip to Brazil and probably a trip to Mexico. These are the universities that have placed the highest number of graduates in Yenching Academy over the first 11 years. You don't have to be from one of those universities to get into the program. These are just the ones that have had the highest rates of success of placing people in the program in the last decade or more. Most Yenching scholars, uh, their highest degree attained is a bachelor's degree. But every year we have somewhere between 10 and 20%. It sort of fluctuates around that number, who already have a postgraduate degree. Oftentimes that will be people who are sort of on in a university system modeled off after the UK. So maybe a 3-year bachelor and a 1-year master's degree. But still, we have people with JDs, law degrees, with business degrees, etc. You will not be advantaged or disadvantaged, whether you're applying directly after finishing or in your final year of a bachelor's program. Most students, that's where they come from. We don't have a hard age cutoff, but we've never admitted anyone over the age of 29. So it's basically an opportunity for you in your 20s. If any of you are outside of your 20s, congratulations, you made it. Unfortunately, you're probably going to have a problem getting into the program. Why? Because for our Chinese students from mainland China are currently only allowed to apply right as they're graduating from their bachelor's program that they studied in the Chinese mainland. And so they're coming in at about 22 years old. And so we're trying to really emphasize building a community among each cohort of Yenching scholars. And we think that if we sort of keep it in the 20s, it'll be easier for our students to bond. Also, if someone is in their mid 30s, maybe they're applying to China Studies, Law and Environment, and Law and Society. Sorry, and they've been a practicing lawyer for 8 years in Sao Paulo. Then how do you fairly evaluate that person against someone who's just coming out of college? So these are some of the reasons why we try to limit it in the 20s. Most Yenching scholars choose economics and management or politics and international relations. This is the breakdown over the first 11 years, and this is not planned. If we were planning this, it would be a much more pleasing and evenly distributed pie chart you see there. This is just what the best applicants in any given year have chosen to study at Yenching Academy. The 11th cohort, the 2025 intake, had 109 scholars from 33 different countries and regions. I want to emphasize that this is enrollment numbers. It doesn't necessarily reflect those who were admitted. In fact, we had several students from Africa and a couple more from Latin America admitted, but for whatever reason, they ended up not enrolling. That happens every year. It's somewhat disappointing, but life gets in the way, I guess. In 2025, you can see these are the top universities placing the highest number of scholars in our program. We always have a significant number from Peking University. Peking University, the students who enter our program aren't all Chinese, but 6 from Cambridge, 7 from PKU. That's a little bit higher than I personally would like from one university in a admissions intake of 110 students. But you can't control who applies in a year, and you do have to take each application on its own merits. So, there, I guess in Cambridge and in Beijing, something was in the water that year, and there were just some really good students. So we've had 26 students join our program from Brazil. You can see the vast majority chose politics and IR, more law and society than economics and management. No love for philosophy and religion at all in terms of those who have applied and entered the program from Brazil. And here you can see the universities from which these Yenching scholars graduated. We've had three from Sao Paulo, University of Sao Paulo, join us, two in 2022 and one in 2020. And you can see here, so philosophy and theory of law and an MA in law going into law and society. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and it makes sense on the surface. IR going into politics and international relations, that makes sense. Painting going into literature and culture, that also makes sense because literature and culture is going to be sort of the best way to include what someone had studied before. But when we look at an application, we're not just looking at your degree. We're going to look at the classes you've taken. We're going to look at your letters of recommendation. We're going to look at research projects you've done, jobs or internships you've had, and maybe sort of if you've been like a research assistant or something like that. We take all of that into account to assess your training for the research concentration to which you've chosen. Normally, when we do this, there's always a couple of examples of someone whose previous major or minor doesn't match up exactly to what they studied at Yenching Academy, and then I can expound upon that, expound upon that example. But I guess USP students tend to go straight, at least these three. We try to help our scholars develop their career plans because, we are a highly academic research focused master's program and we're focused on China, but you don't have to want to be a researching, teaching academic or professor to join our program. Most of our students go into the professional stages of their career. And so, based on feedback from students over the 11 years, we've consistently been increasing our career counseling and sort of leadership training offerings. These are all extracurricular offerings. I think the key one is, aside from one-on-one career counseling and companies or organizations coming and recruiting our students, we also have a professional mentorship program. We have about 15 different people, all based in Beijing, but not necessarily Chinese, who are in different fields. It might be finance, tech, marketing and communications, historical or cultural preservation, charity, international organizations, etc. So you can sign up to have them be your professional mentor. And that might include individual meetings, it might include site visits, it might include shadowing. It just depends on what works for the mentor and the mentee. We have a lot of student organized events as well. They'll go through our student affairs office, sort of the catch-all extracurricular office. But I would say probably two-thirds of the events that take place at Yenching Academy are organized by students. They know someone, or there's something they're interested in, and they reach out. And this can include alumni, or it can include visiting scholars who are in Beijing, or just people that they meet along the way. And Yenching scholars are really successful at the next stage in their career. We like to think that's partially because of what we offer, but also they're really super impressive when they come into the program as well. Only 20% of Yenching scholars go into further graduate study. The majority of those who do go into PhD programs. You can see some of the majors that they've studied after leaving Yenching Academy and some of the top institutions where they're studying now. But three-quarters at least go on to the professional stage of their career. There isn't a single path that people, there isn't a representative career path that Yenching scholars embark upon graduation because there isn't a single path or a single sort of type of person who comes to Yenching Academy. Very, very diverse paths lead to Yenching Academy, and Yenching scholars do interesting things upon graduation. A lot of people want to go into international organizations. Some are interested in going into tech or finance. Some are interested in working within sort of major Chinese firms that are expanding globally. Some want to go into IR or policy advising positions, or some want to go into public service, oftentimes foreign ministry work or diplomatic work in their home country. We've got a really cool, um, pretty tightly knit, but small and growing alumni chapter. We've only had about 1,200 students join our program. That means we have about 1,000 alumni worldwide right now, which we've organized into alumni chapters. You might have heard of, I think there's a nonprofit sort of, I don't know if it's a think tank, but Observa China. That was founded by Yenching scholars. Okay. Strategies and application requirements. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna assume that everyone in here is applying with Brazilian citizenship. If anyone is from the PRC, has Chinese citizenship from the mainland, or from Hong Kong or Macau or Taiwan, raise your hand and let me know, and I'll give you, because they're essentially three application paths based on one's citizenship or region of residence. I'm going to talk about international students' applications coming up. Mainland Chinese students can only apply through what's known as the recommendation for admission to graduate programs without taking the postgraduate entrance examination. It's called 推年. So they must have attended university in mainland China. Applicants from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan essentially give two parallel applications, one to Yenching Academy as international students do, and one to the PKU Graduate School application portal for HMT, quote unquote, applicants. Okay, so we're looking for really strong academic performance. We don't have, um, really clear-cut standards like 3.95 out of 4 GPA or first class with honors. That we don't work that way, but we are looking for academic excellence because we're a competitive academic research-focused graduate program. We really value students who have experience or commitment to cross-cultural communication. Because believe me, when you're in a diverse student body, living together, studying together in an intense uh, graduate school environment, in a different culture, in a different political system, in a different university administrative system, being a Yenching scholar is nothing if it is not all about cross-cultural communication. So that's something we really look for in our students. We value students who have a deep-seated interest and potentially experience, academic, personal, or otherwise related to China. As I said earlier, you don't have to be a fluent Chinese speaker on your way to being a publishing academic related to China. But we are making a major investment in our students, and we hope that Yenching scholars will be part of the conversation about China going forward. What does it mean to be part of the conversation? That's really up to you. That's up to Yenching scholars. But it's that we don't view this as a program for someone who says, what the hell? It's funded. Why not? Let's try it. We really want to see passion and commitment and interest in things related to China. We also want to know a little bit more about our applicants outside of the classroom. Are you a musician? Do you have a startup? Are you committed to charitable activities? Things outside of the classroom that are significant enough to who you are, that you maybe want to spend time doing them, even as a Yenching scholar. That helps us get to know what kind of student you would be. And in a self-interested manner, it's a way for us to think, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had a few students who were interested in this kind of thing outside of the classroom? Okay, application package details. Application is due soon, a couple of weeks from now, December 1st. You will need I'm only assuming here that University of Sao Paulo is not taught in English, so you're probably going to need to submit one of the standard certificates of English proficiency, Cambridge, TOEFL, etc. If you are currently enrolled and have not yet graduated, we need an official certificate of enrollment. If you have finished any degree programs, we need your diploma. You will need to submit your diploma when you register as a, at the university should you get in. Essentially, you can't go to grad school unless you can prove you've graduated. We need official university transcripts of all courses you've taken. Screenshots of a web page do not suffice. Okay, on the essays and the parts of the application package that you can control, we have the personal statement in English, 750 words. It's your cover letter. Who you are, where you're from, why you're interested in Yenching Academy, why you're interested in China, what you hope to, where you want to go in your career and how you think Yenching Academy can help you achieve it. That's not a formal list of what should be in there. These are just the kinds of things that most people include in their personal statement. Then the statement of research interest, twice as long as the personal statement. And excluding citations, it can't be any longer than 1,500 words. This is your academic research focused self-introduction to us. Your statement of research interest does not commit you to what you write in this essay actually being your thesis topic, but it's a way for us to, by reading how you write about research, begin to understand how you think about research. You should consider the statement of research interest a formal academic document. You should include citations or at least contextualize your research interest within the work of other scholars. That's a standard tip for any grad school application that has a research statement. You should contextualize it in research by other academics. And I think a sort of nice way of thinking about the statement of research interest is this is the first step in a multi-year conversation that will eventually culminate in your master's thesis. We used to call it the research proposal, but then backed up off of that because we didn't want that sounded too much like we fully expected students to already know exactly what they wanted to research for their thesis. When you have a whole year of courses and reading and thinking and exploring, you don't submit a formal thesis proposal until the end of year one, and then your resume. And then finally, the letters of recommendation. This is standard per PKU regulations and top Chinese graduate programs. These letters of recommendation must be academic letters, and they must be from associate professor, full professor, or higher. I personally hate that regulation. Assistant professors are qualified to write letters of recommendation. But this is just the standard in top Chinese graduate programs, and we have to go by those rules. And then it's really helpful if you can find letter writers who are connected to the field that you want to study. Now, that might mean China. It could be someone from the Department of, we often see it, Asian languages and civilizations, or it could be a historian who studies China, or it could be, say, a political scientist who doesn't study China, but you're applying to China studies, politics, and international relations. So try to match it up with either China or one of the fields within the parentheses in the research concentration that you're choosing. And then finally, your personal statement, your statement of research interest, and your resume are the three parts of the application that you control. You can't control what the letter writer writes. You can't change your official transcript. These are three parts of the same application, but use them to emphasize different parts of yourself. Don't repeat your CV in your personal statement. Try to it should look like the same person, but try to emphasize different aspects of who you are as a young scholar and as a young professional in those three parts that you control. Okay, that's all I have. Went longer than I thought. I apologize about that. Been a long trip and I'm a little bit tired. You can, if you have any more specific questions, reach out to us at yca-admissions@pku.edu.cn. Go to our website, look at Yenching Academy course offerings, look at Yenching scholars, the profiles of current Yenching scholars. Hopefully, it'll be inspiring. Yes, they're all impressive, but it's once you dig a little bit deeper, you'll realize that they're really such different paths. And such different interests and backgrounds, yet they've all led to being Yenching scholars. Um, don't just look at the faculty listed on Yenching Academy's website. Dig a little deeper. Go to departments and schools at Peking University and find professors there whose research is interesting to you. That shows that you're already doing your research. You're already looking past Yenching Academy to the kinds of academic resources that are on offer at PKU. And then you can find us on the standard social media sites, at WeChat if you use that, at Beijing Daxue Yenching Xuetang, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram, and Twitter. I don't really like saying X, but that's where you can find us. All right, excellent. Thank you all very much. If you do end up applying, I think you'll be very happy with that decision, and we hope that I hope to see your applications and wish you all the best of luck.